Alright, next we have the Demon Seed. We've got Warlock. One cost. Questline, take 6 damage on your turns. Reward, lifesteal, deal 3 damage to the enemy hero. There's tons of support for this. Warlock has always naturally been a class that self-damages. There could be an aggro application to this, there could be a control application, or you just might play this card because some of your cards deal a lot of damage to you over the course of the game. Um, Even if you're just using life tap. Now, looking at the prizes, this is where we're going to see whether or not the payoff is good. Establish the link. Questline, take 7 damage on your turns. Reward, lifesteal, deal 3 damage to the enemy hero. Now, we were just talking about the aggro position. Let's say you play Demon Seed, and then you play one of the cards that's coming up, 2 cost 2/5, that deals 2 damage to you every turn. That's attacking. Flame Imp, an exceptionally aggressive card. It's attacking. Uh, you establish the link, it deals them another 3. Just by playing your aggro Warlock deck, you might be dealing them an extra 6 damage off of your 1 cost card. So think about that for a second. There's in an aggressive deck, you're hitting them for 6 very quickly, and it's also very important based on where this quest goes. You've already hit them for 6, and it makes the last part, the payoff, much easier to complete the ritual. Questline, take 8 damage on your turns. Reward, Blightborn Tamsin. 5 cost 7/7 Battle Cry. For the rest of the game, damage you take on your turn damages your opponent instead. This includes fatigue, so the most obvious way to apply this quest is to play it on turn 1, play a normal deck, and you just can never lose to fatigue. Is basically how this comes out. But then there's other iterations where you can burn through um, through your cards. You can burn through your own health with aggressive cards, and this turns into an extra 6 damage to your opponent's face, plus the ability to then take all your self-burning cards and add them to fanning the flames. And then there's everything in between where you might have mid-range. So there's a lot of interesting applications here. So it's really interesting, and definitely during the theory crafting portion of this, where a lot of the streamers were putting decks together, the Demon Seed was very, very, very easy to go off. Warlock usually beat other control matchups anyways, but now you just definitely beat other control matchups. The best version I saw was where you were using Altar of Fire, burning through your own deck, Ticketus happily burning through your deck, and then Fatigue. You're like, oh, just kidding, you take 2, you take 3, you take 4. Backlash, Backlash, I take 4, I take 5, I take 6, I take 3, and actually you take all of that. 18 damage to your opponent on a draw spell. Seems pretty good, so I definitely see where this is going. Demonic Assault, 4 cost fell spell. Deal 3 damage, fine. Summon 2 1/3 Voidwalkers with Taunt. There's an existing card for Hunters that is very good in Arena that gives you a 3/3 Wolf. The implications for this is more stats, and definitely in Standard the ability to gain creatures in play that affect combat is definitely where this card improves on that. So it's probably too expensive to see much play. It is a way to not need, it doesn't require anything to go off to get your 2 Voidwalkers, and for that reason it might just be good enough. It certainly probably finds a home in any sort of aggressive list because it's extra either face damage or board control, plus playing 2 other guys to help protect your Flame Imps and your aggressively costed cards that have downsides. So it could find a home. In arenas where this definitely shines though. So this is going to be a role player at best in Standard. The fact that it gives you taunts means it might have some applicability across archetypes, but it's a 2-star card there. However, in Arena, this is a strong 3-cost card. Now the common, I'm struggling to recall the name. The 4-cost deal 3 and make a 3/3 was the best common card you could get for Hunters last set in Arena. Now instead you're getting 1/3 taunts. You're getting more stats. They affect the board better. You can jump ahead of your opponents in arena. This card is exceptionally strong. Uh, I don't want to say 4-star for arena, but it's pretty close. It's a very strong 3-star card. You're going to take this over your Sunwell Initiates, and it's probably right up there with Claw Machine as far as the total amount of stats and impact that you're getting out of it. Next, we have Touch of the Nethrizim. 1-cost Shadow spell, so you can get it back with Tamsin. Deal 2 damage to a minion. If it dies, restore 4 health to your hero. Can't go Faith, which is a little bit of a downside, but restoring 4 health is certainly something you're looking to do if you're in this quest line, especially if you are aggressively playing with your life total. If you're doing Stealer of Souls, for example, you're going to have to find some way to heal back up. Otherwise, you're going to crush the control matchups already with that quest line, but in these aggro matchups, you need a way to restock. And this is it. This is exactly the type of card you want to have in that deck. You don't care that it's not good against control because you're already crushing control, right? So it's the sort of card that has just a lot of upside. It's gonna be great in the quest deck. It's good in the control deck. It's probably even good in the aggro deck because you have a lot of self-damaging effects like Flame Imp. So this is just a solid 3-star card. It's gonna go everywhere. In arena, it's just a 2 damage spell, which caps its utility, leaves it at 2 stars. One of the all-stars of the aggressive self-damage deck, Bloodbound Imp, 2-cost 2/5 demon. Whenever this attacks, deal 2 damage to your hero. This is obviously way above curve as far as the stats it's getting. Even Hecklefang Hyena doesn't have stats this good. And the downside is actually an upside in the deck that you're presumably playing this in. So I think this card's insanely good, and it's insanely good because against aggro, you can use it as kill 2 guys. It almost works like a weapon in that case, where you're investing your life into board control. Against control, it's a very hard to deal with early creature that's going to hit them at least once, if not twice, and maybe 3 times, which, by the way, is going to be turning on your quest. So a lot of things to be happy about with Bloodbound Imp. I think it has a lot of homes in aggressive and controlling and quest line decks, which means by definition I got to give it 3 stars. It's also a demon to boot, which means we have some other synergies that we could be working with. In arena, your life total is totally a resource. This is the best 2-drop in the entire format, so it's a 3-star card. You're happy to get it. It's not one of the bombs that's going to end the game for you, but you're going to pick it for your curve every single time that you see it. Next we have Dark Alley Pact, 4-cost shadow spell. Summon a fiend with stats equal to your hand size. Like we saw with the themes of most of the other classes, they have 2 different directions in Stormwind, which kind of makes it like a tale of 2 cities. Alright, if Stormwind has, every class has one path or the other, the shadow or the light. Dark Alley Pact is definitely the hand size Warlock support. There's a lot of support for cards in hand, being able, even the legendary that we're going to see in a little bit, really strong cards if you just fill your hand and constantly play with 8 cards in hand. Usually that deck falls behind early because you're spending early turns just filling up your hand. So the question is whether or not these cards are going to be good enough at getting you back in the game. This card being one of them, a fiend equal to stats of your hand size. Well, by turn 4, let's say very generically you just cast a life tap on 2 and backfire on 3. You've generated 4 extra cards by turn 4. So you're looking at your 7 plus 4. You could have a full hand size by the time you're playing this. You could be casting a 4-cost 9/9. I would say a 4-cost 9/9 is fast enough to get you back into games in every mid-range plus matchup. If you're in against control, then 4-cost 9/9, good luck dealing with it. If you're against mid-range, they definitely are going to be unhappy about a guy that big. Against aggro, it's too slow. You just can't have that much investment into your hand and not pay a price, which makes sense because the payoff on this card is absolutely enormous, right? This is very easily going to be at least a 7/7 on curve. and potentially bigger than that. So depending if you get that backfire. In Arena, this card's not very good because you're trying to play a card on curve every single turn, which means your hand size is usually capped at 3, sometimes it's at 4, and because you're Warlock, maybe it might start getting up, especially if you life tap on 2, you might have a hand size of 6, but that means at best this is going to be a 4-cost 5/5. So that caps its usefulness. It's probably going to be a 4-cost 2/2 a lot of the time. Makes it not very good. You can build your deck around it. It depends what other cards, what other sets they give us for the Warlock support. I'm not going to give it a 1-star because there might be enough support, and you can certainly just play around it and say, hey, I've got Dark Alley Pact or 2 in my deck, therefore I just want to use my life tap and buff my cards. So I think it's a 2-star. It's never going to be, well, sorry, it could be just atrocious. If you're in a top decking part of the game, though, you can always just life tap into other cards, play other cards until you're ready to play the Pact. And it's probably not going to be worse than a 2/2 or 3/3, but that's still pretty bad. So I kind of want to give it 1-star in Arena. You're not anxious to pick this card by any means. For Standard, it's really going to be about the metagame that makes you want to play a Handlock deck. If there's a lot of mid-range decks or control decks, yeah, Handlock is going to say, hey, I'm always full of action. All my cards are aggressively costed. I invested turn 2 and turn 3 into making my hand big, and now I get to just drop really, basically drop thunderclaps on my opponent. If that environment is good, this will be exceptionally good, but I think you need to build around. You need a lot of other pieces. So this is a 2-star card. It's only going to be good in one deck. Actually, if it's only good in one deck, that makes it a 1-star card. It's really only going to be good in that one deck. It's going to be good in that one deck, but you need to pull a lot of bells and whistles to make it good. It will be good in that deck, though. We'll say that. Next, we have the aforementioned Anetheron, 6-cost demon, 8/6. One of the few cards that would get worse with Deck of Chaos. Cost 1 if your hand is full. So we were talking about the support that needs to be there. Compared to the other card, which would be a 4-cost 9/9, potentially, this is a 1-cost 8/6. I will take the 1-cost 8/6 every single time, especially since my hand is full, and it means I have other cards to dump out. So this is the payoff card. The other one is a role player. This card is just great. Also, it's just a 6-cost 8/6. So at worst, you're in top deck mode. This is just a great creature to drop. And if you are in a control versus control matchup, it's very easily going to cost 1. Unfortunately, something you'll never be able to do, I think, unless you jump through hoops. If you have a death rattle on a fishy flyer, then you can Twisted Nether. If you have 10 cards, Twisted Nether, you get the fishy flyer, spectral flyer back into your hand, and then drop a Netheron. That effect is good enough to try to make happen, but you might have to put some subpar cards in your deck. So it's kind of interesting. Cards like Sneaky Delinquent, Smug Senior, and Fishy Flyer are all the types of cards that are good for Handlock. The card that you play is fine, and then you get another one back into your hand. It's the sort of card that would support this very easily. And if you had a Smug Senior in play and you punch Twisting Nether, it comes back to your hand. The 5/7 comes back to your hand, and then you play a 1-cost 8/6. That could be really good. Unfortunately, this is not in a class that you can copy it. But yeah, let's see, what could you get? You could create it off of the studies. Yeah, I don't see many other uses. It's going to be very good in that deck. If you're playing Handlock, it is the best card in your Handlock deck, but it's only showing up in that one deck. So I'm hesitant to give it 3 stars, but I think that's what it deserves, because 6 costs 8/6. It's always going to be at least fine. You're happy to have it, and then when it's great, it's insane. In Arena, this is a 6-cost 8/6. So it's a fine card to put in the middle to top of your curve. You're very happy to play it. So it's a 3-cost card, 3-star card. Next we have Shady Bartender, 5-cost 4/4, tradable. Battlecry, give your demons +2/+2. there's a lot of demons, there's a lot of cheap demons, and there's a lot of pumping effects within the demon classes. Is there enough support for it? I don't think so, not yet. That said, it is tradable. You could build your deck and be like, I don't have any things in play, I just traded away. I don't think this is really going to have the support to play constructed. You really need to have two other demons in play, and when you have two other demons in play, this feels like a little bit of a win more card. So I'm going to give it a 1 star in constructed and standard, which is weird because for most tradable cards, I give them at least 2 stars because at worst you can ship it away. But I think you're going to end up shipping this card away a lot. When you were playing it, you could play other things that are better. It's never going to be great. That said, in Arena, there are a lot of demons. Almost all of your Warlock creatures in Arena are demons. It is tradable, which means at worst you're playing a 5-cost 4/4. You can cycle it away for other cards, and then sometimes the payoff is just absolutely game-breaking. Where if you're playing demons on curve, this card just crushes it. It's like Fungal Mancer on crack. You know, just this a bigger body that has more flexibility than your Fungal Mancer in the right situation. That makes it a good card. Fungal Mancer is a 3-star card, so this is going to be a 3-star card. Next, we have Entitled Customer. This card's pretty exciting. 6-cost 3/2. Battle Cry. Deal damage equal to your hand size to all other minions. Compared to the 4-cost 8/8 or 9/9, this card is always, just about always, going to wipe the board while also putting a 3/2 in play. This is the sort of card that you need in a Handlock style deck that is going to get you back in the game, right? Because you inherently went behind to fill your hand. Well, turn 6 happens, and now you're back in it. And then from every turn on, you can draw plus life tap plus play a card with 10 cards in hand. And that's good. That's a really good effect. You can alternate turns with 8 or 9 cards in your hand. And if the support is there, I mean, there's a lot of cards that seem to support this deck. It's definitely going to be at least viable. You're going to be able to play a deck and build a deck with these interactions. Whether or not it's top-end competitive, I don't know, but this is the sort of card that is the reason that you're playing the Handlock, so we're going to give it 3 stars. In Arena, this is actually pretty similar to a Shavara. It's a 6-cost minion that probably you have 2 or 3 other cards in your hand, but you could easily sculpt your hand to have 5 or 6, which means you're going to play it and it's going to be the only creature on the board. The only issue is that then you're passing the turn, and it's your opponent's turn to drop something that's bigger than a 3/2. So you may be fighting from behind even after you play this card, but certainly it's the sort of card that if you saw early would allow you to put more expensive cards in your deck and say, hey, you know, I'm going to concede turns 1 through 6, and then I'm going to take over starting on turn 7. In that deck, if you do play it, you want lots of 3s and 4s because you do need something to stem the bleeding early. You need something that's cheap enough that on turn 5 you can life tap and still play a 3. You want to be able to play 2 cards on turn 7, and maybe even most importantly, once you get to 10 mana crystals, you want to be able to play your 6 and 7s with your 3s and 4s. So make sure that you're building the right type of deck, but it's definitely got a high ceiling. Any card that is a Highlander wipe the board is going to be very good, so we'll give it 3 stars. Dreaded Mount. 3-cost, give a minion +1/+1. When it dies, summon an Endless Dreadsteed. The stats on this do not merit its value, but we have to see how good is this. 4-cost 1/1, which essentially you're not paying for ever. At the end of turn, summon this, essentially. You can't just have multiples in play to just sack. You're just getting the 1 back at the end of the turn, but it does come back at the end of every turn. So you can always run into them with it. They can't really get rid of it. It comes back. You're always going to be able to attack with it. You're always going to get it back. If there's support for sacrificial effects, maybe this card gets a little bit better. It's not big enough to really get the effects you want. If we could get a permanent buff on it, that'd be good, but I don't think this card is very good. In limited, a little bit better. Just having a 1/1 that's impossible to get rid of means for the rest of the game you're essentially trading up. Means it does have some playability. The turn, if you ever play it and win combat that you would otherwise trade, is very good. If you ever would be behind and you can trade up, that's good. But we're just going to give it a solid 2 stars in arena, and I don't think it's particularly good, at least not yet. If we get a lot of sacrifice synergy for Warlock, which we have some, granted, we have some, we can create some 5/5s. Um, I still think this is just going to be a niche role player, so it's 1 star for constructed. Unfortunately, we've got that's our second 1 star epic. Hopefully, they give us some support for those cards. Next, we have Runed Mithril Rod, a Warlock weapon. 3-cost weapon, 2 durability, 0 strike. After you draw 4 cards, reduce the cost of cards in your hand by 1. Lose 1 durability. I think this is another one of those cards that you are happy to just play for the effect. You don't need to like aggressively try to draw 4 cards, but it's hitting all the cards in your hand, right? And in a Handlock deck, one of the things that might punish you is you might lock yourself out of the game with too many cards that are too expensive, and this ensures that that doesn't happen. It rewards you for drawing all these cards, and then you might just have these really busted good turns. I don't think it's ever going to allow you to play a Netheron for 0. I think a Netheron's going to set its cost to 1, so it'll never be free. But just over the course of the game, you play this, you might even just comfortably draw cards for a few turns, play your normal control strategy, and then suddenly Ticketus costs 1 less. You've got Twisting Nether will cost 1 less. Jaraxxus will cost 1 less, which is a big deal because then you get the demon on that turn. I think this card's just great. I think this goes in almost every Warlock deck. I don't know if you'd ever want to put it in an aggro deck. There's still some deciding. You're spending a card to get hand cost debuffs, but we've seen how good Efficient Octobot is. So this card's getting a solid 3 stars for constructed. You can do a lot of very special things with it. And the fact that you can do it twice, right? If you play this on curve, let's say you even coin it out, by the time you're getting to your end game, you've reduced the cost of your end game cards potentially by 2, which opens up really interesting possibilities as far as how the game can play out. It might mess around with some corrupt synergies, maybe, but I think the payoff is worth it. In Arena, this is a tough one to wrap my head around for Arena because it's not giving me any onboard power, it's not gaining me any cards, and the hand cost reduction is a little bit harder to maneuver with and do anything special. For that reason, I think you just don't take this in Arena. I think it's a 1-star card. I would be happy to be proven wrong. It could be the case that you can just play this, and there is enough support for Handlock, even in Arena, that you could play this and then build up a big hand and then dump out your big hand. And that would be pretty exciting if you could draft a sort of really synergistic deck like that. That's the sort of deck where if you made it happen, you'd want the Rod and it would feel like a 12-win Arena deck. So it could be really exciting to get something like that. And that's it for Warlock. The quest is definitely it takes the cake. The Handlock, we're just gonna have to see between the Baker and playing a 1-cost 8/6 and playing a 4-cost 8/8, whether or not that weight is enough. Whether or not you can get back in the game against aggro, or whether or not you're just conceding to aggro matchups. And I never want to play a deck that just concedes some matchups. But the Demon Seed quest is really easy to get off. And while you probably won most control matchups before, Now it's pretty hard to lose. Even if they play optimally, you can just like spew your cards. Doesn't matter. Deal damage, life tap. Oh, just yeah. Here we are. You took it 3. You took 3. Hey, look, we're in fatigue. You're dead. you know. On top of all the exciting deck building options, that's definitely where I'm looking at for Warlock. That's going to be the fun thing to build around. The 2-cost 2/5 is a fantastic card, and we'll see whether or not the hand control works. 6 cost 3/2, wipe the board. That's good. 4 cost 3/2, gain 8 or 9 life. That's good. 4 cost 8/8 or 9/9 is very good. 1 cost 8/6 is obviously outstanding. So there's some play. There's some possibility that that deck is just a good enough mid-range deck. Um, but we'll have to see if it has the tools against aggro.